When your home sellers won't listen to reality when it comes to market pricing, what do you do as a real estate professional? Hey, consumers that are here too, go ahead and listen up because this might help you as well. The number one thing you have to remember is that pricing is fluid. Real estate is not a fixed commodity. It is not a fixed market, and there's nothing really predictable about it because somebody that's trying to sell a house is also trying to appeal to buyers. Buyers may have an expectation based on HGTV, which is going to drive their reaction to the house's condition. They also may be staring at the financial markets and trying to figure out what interest rates are going to do next, because we all get so married to outside information, and the home seller gets stuck in the middle because you're thinking, my house is great, great school zone, great lot, beautiful condition, great floor plan. Why wouldn't somebody want this house? And there is somebody that wants it, but the key is to get the price on the nose for that moment in time to find the right buyer. And that's why I say that markets are fluid. The reality is this: you could put your house on the market today, and then there could be an announcement from the Fed that throws interest rates into a tizzy. There could be something that happens in the stock markets go off a cliff for just a minute, and that makes buyers go, ah! And so that can change everything at the drop of a hat, which is really hard to deal with when you're a home seller, because this is, for most people, your largest financial instrument and where most of your savings are located in this very illiquid house. But you have to know this: if markets are fluid, you're not crazy, and maybe you did overshoot and maybe you didn't, but you're going to have a real world conversation, which is the second thing you have to understand about house pricing. If you are a real estate professional, you've got to be comfortable with difficult conversations. And I know that a lot of y'all got into real estate because you love people and you love houses, and then you started doing real estate, and I don't love people as much as I did, and I really don't like all the houses, and it's really hard because you do want to please. If there's anything we know about the nature of professional realtors, you are pleasers by nature, which means you don't want to have difficult conversations. And so here's how you set up for a difficult conversation. Go all the way back to the very first time you sat down with that home seller. When you were telling them, I love your house, this is great, here's who I am. And then you went over all the market data. At the beginning of that conversation, before you swoon over the house, and before you tell them you're great, and before you do the market data, go all the way back to the beginning when you came in the house and took off your shoes, because that's good manners. You're going to say this to your home seller prospect: do I have your permission to tell you the truth? It's a very important question to ask, and frankly, I wish people asked this in all kinds of sales. I wish teachers would ask this of students, and students would ask it of teachers and say, do I have your permission to tell you the truth? Now, if you've been on my channels at all, you know I love Seth Godin, and I love all of the permission-based marketing talks that he does, because it's so important for us as humans to receive permission before we go diving right in. Your seller is going to tell you yes, by the way. Big spoiler alert, they're going to say yes, tell me the truth. And then you'll tell them the truth about the market conditions. Tell them what's happening in your market. And don't just tell them, back it up with some data that you pulled from your local multiple listing service. Show them what's happening month over month with traffic, and month over month with sales and prices. And then pull your data from your showing service if you have it and say, here's what the showings look like in our area. And then get super advanced and use tools like Alto's research and give them a full zip code backing of what's happening in the market. And then you can say to them, here's what's happening in our neck of the woods. You might be in a market that's favoring sellers, but your market that was favoring sellers 12 months ago might now be favoring buyers, and your sellers need to know this. Spoiler alert, if you're the realtor not having these conversations, you're the bad guy. I know you don't want to hear me say that, but you have to tell people what you see professionally. You have to tell them showings have tailed off in the market. Call your fellow realtors who have listings in that neighborhood and say, hey friend, what's your traffic look like? Some will call you back and some won't. It depends on where they are on the scarcity versus abundance scale, but you should be making that outreach to ask. The difficult conversation only gets more difficult when you don't do the research and you don't bring this information forward. Now, your home seller might be stuck in 2021. The salad days for being a seller, when your house could back up to a 4-lane highway and a high tension power line, be sitting on the side of a cliff and never have had a vacuum cleaner inside it, and it would get multiple offers. And you as an agent were like, I can't believe y'all are wanting to buy this hot mess express, but all right, here we go. And people bought it. Now, our markets don't put up with that. There are some houses that get multiples, but if you pay attention, they tend to be the perfect houses, a 10 out of 10, spotless, and just ready to move into. The houses that have some kind of a hiccup that causes a discount relative to market are going to have different challenges now. You got to tell people that. Now, after you said to them, do I have your permission to tell you the truth? And they say yes, I need you to follow up on that and tell them the truth and say, well, your house does back up to a high tension power line. And I know that you like having common space behind the house, and there is a buyer that is going to also value that common space behind the house, but that ain't every buyer. So we may have to price it at a discount relative to market to account for that power line. It's not about the house. The house isn't the problem. The reality is that buyers react to different properties differently, and you are a real estate professional. You have to convey this. And by the way, you can pull all the market data, evaluate what the price range could look like. You've got enough data to defend it to the professional certified appraiser who comes in later, and still nobody buys it. Well, what that means, friends, is not that the house is being rejected and not that buyers are rejecting it. It means that the market has rejected that price for that house at that moment in time. Now, the moment in time could change. If interest rates were to go back to, say, 5%, new buyers will enter the marketplace. The markets are likely to heat up. If, however, interest rates stay sticky at the 7% mark, we don't really have a lot of new buyers entering the marketplace. We have some that no longer can afford to buy at today's prices. So your seller has to know that if you want to reach the buyers still buying when it's a little quiet, you have to be the best deal. Think about it this way. Having that difficult conversation is simply helping people think about how they operate as consumers themselves. When I walk into a store, you know where I'm going right away, right? Y'all know me. Do I buy anything at the front of the store that says new, fresh in? No, ma'am. I go to the back of the store, to the clearance rack. I'm looking for the 75% off item, because if I like it at full price, I'm going to like it a lot better at 75% off. And I know that if I buy winter clothing right now in the spring, well, it'll be fine come winter as long as I don't get moths in my closet. So why wouldn't you plan ahead? And so that's how I behave as a consumer. Tell your seller that. The only reason stores put things on sale is because there's not enough buyers for them right now. That means you have to attract the buyers that are out there. And that might mean if your competitors are here, you might get right here, so you're the best deal in the marketplace. If, however, you're the seller who says, I don't care what time of year it is, I do not care what the markets are doing, my house is the tippy top best, then as a professional, you have to tell them that means you may not sell. And see if they're still willing to put a sign in the yard, put it on the internet for all to see, accumulate days on market, and put up with the occasional oddball showing if they're going to price above the market. That means you as a real estate professional know your name is in front of a house that is priced above the market, so your reputation is riding with them. That might be the moment where you say to them, I'm not your agent because I can't defend your price based on the market data right now. And if you're not interested in actually working towards a sale, I may not be your agent. That's tough. But that's also the way to help your sellers understand you have some skin in this game too, because no matter what it says in the mainstream media, real estate professionals do not make oodles and scads of money unless they sell a property. Until then, you're out of pocket the photos and the drone and the marketing and everything that you do to get their property professionally presented. And if it doesn't sell, you're just out that money. So ask yourself, can you defend the price? And can you defend investing in that listing? If the answer is no, tell the seller. Tell that seller, I really like y'all. I feel like we can be besties and we can go sit down and have an adult beverage anytime you want to. However, at this price, I can't defend you to an appraiser. At this price, I can't invest in all the professional work that I'm going to have to do to make you present properly. And then if they still insist on a price that's higher than where the market's behaving, you need to close your laptop and provide another name to them. Find them another agent that's willing to ride with them. But if you're not, you've got to be honest. The only reason sellers overprice really is because nobody took the time to explain it properly, to give them the market picture, and to let them know the risks to them of overpricing. Because let's make sure we understand that. The number 3 thing you have to understand about having these difficult conversations is that your sellers need to understand the price that they pay for having a price that's sitting above the market. They need to understand that buyers, when they are looking for a house, when they see a house that's been on the market for some time, are going to immediately say, something's wrong with that one. And there may be nothing wrong with it except that the price is above market. Now, it might also have condition that is below market. That's a different conversation. They may have been under contract and the buyer pulled up stakes at the last minute. Well, as a professional realtor, you're going to call and investigate that, but you have to get buyers to see it first. Now, this is part of the argument some real estate firms are making about why they don't want to put houses on the market. They don't want to accumulate those days so they can try a higher price. That is definitely one strategy, but if you're not exposed to the market, I really don't know why you're worried about accumulating those days, because you're only going to be seen by a few. But that's different business models, and that's the good thing about real estate. There's something for everybody. But your sellers need to know the longer they're on the market, the more likely they are to get an offer that's below what they're asking, and the longer it sits, the lower that initial offer tends to go. They should also know that there's a frustration level involved outside of the contract price and outside of offers and outside of any of that. There is a major irritation factor that goes along with being the overpriced house, and that is the sporadic nature of showings. We know that when your house is priced correctly, you're going to get more showings more quickly, which generates the correct pool of buyers because you've got your fishing pole in the right place in the pond. But if you're trying to fish over here where there are no fish and that occasional fish swims by, occasional showings will drive you completely crazy, y'all, because that means you kind of have to keep your house clean or clean-ish, or where I can get it cleaned up fairly quickly. And then at the drop of a hat, when a buyer wants to come in, skedaddle so they can have a look at it. And the longer you go between showings, the harder it is to keep the house in showing condition. My house is not in showing condition. For anybody that ever looks at my backdrop and says, Leigh Brown, too many books. I know, my house is not on the market, but if it were, I would stage it properly. And if I stage it, I mainly have to keep my family outside of it because they won't keep it clean, and that's how it goes. But your sellers need to know this pain point. So if you are watching this video and you're a real estate professional, go back to square one, start asking permission. And then square two is going to be you delivering better market data so your sellers can know what the story looks like. And number 3, you've got to let them know the pain points. If you're a consumer watching this and your agent is not talking to you and you've been on the market for some time with very few showings and nobody's nibbling, and the agent says, it's just the market, you need to give them a ringy-dingy and say, what's the scoop on my price right now, so that you can make a decision as to whether you move forward or you pull it off the market. Good agents have hard conversations, and that's what it boils down to. Now, if you're looking to sell a property in Cabarrus County or in the greater Charlotte area, call Leigh Brown. We'll have a very good conversation, pros, cons, and let you make a good call. And if you are a real estate pro who needs to know more information about how to get your business moving forward, no matter what that market's doing, you can call me too, and I'll help you.